Have you ever had that eerie feeling that everyone is looking at the wrong thing? For months you've been bombarded by the same loud headlines. The mainstream media wants you to panic about the AI bubble bursting. They want you to stress over US-China trade wars, or lose sleep over who is sitting in the Oval Office. But I'm going to let you in on a secret. It's all a distraction. The biggest threat to your bank account, your mortgage, and the entire global financial system isn't loud, and it isn't American. In fact, it's hidden in the most mind-numbingly boring corner of the financial universe, something so deeply buried in the macroeconomics rabbit hole that 99% of everyday investors don't even know it exists. If you've been wondering why mortgage rates refuse to drop, why the stock market randomly throws terrifying tantrums every few months, and why the Federal Reserve promises relief, but everything still feels suffocatingly tight, the answer isn't in Washington. It's in Tokyo. To understand how we got to the edge of this cliff, we have to travel back to 1992, when Japan's massive asset bubble violently burst. Real estate plummeted, the stock market crashed, and the country entered what economists call
In
the lost
1992,
decades.
Japan's asset bubble burst.
A 30-year period where the economy hit absolute pause with no growth, no inflation, and no wage increases. Desperate to wake the economy from its coma, the Bank of Japan did something radical. They cut interest rates to zero, then below zero, and eventually introduced yield curve control, a policy that essentially superglued long-term bond yields to the floor. Now put yourself in the shoes of a Japanese pension fund manager or a major Tokyo bank. You are sitting on billions of dollars, but your own government bonds pay you literally 0%. You are forced to look across the ocean. This sparked the greatest global shopping spree in human history, where Japan quietly became the world's ultimate ATM, transforming into the largest foreign holder of U.S. government debt. Wall Street realized they could exploit this, pioneering a strategy known as the yen carry trade. The blueprint was simple. You borrow money in Japan at a 0% interest rate, convert those yen into US dollars, and buy US treasuries yielding 4%, pocketing the difference. But it didn't stop at safe bonds. Investors used that cheap Japanese cash to flood money into Silicon Valley tech stocks, aggressive real estate, and risky emerging markets. For 3 decades, the entire global financial system was essentially running on free Japanese Wi-Fi. Trillions of dollars pumped into the markets, all resting on one single fragile assumption, that Japan's interest rates would stay at zero forever. In 2024, that assumption shattered. For the first time in 17 years, the Bank of Japan blinked, ending their zero-rate policy and raising rates. The reaction was instant and violent. The moment those rates ticked up, the S&P 500 nosedived, and Japan's Nikkei index suffered its worst single-day crash since 1987. Why? Because the free money machine broke. The math flipped. Suddenly, borrowing in yen became expensive, and all that capital that had been fueling American markets for 30 years began packing its bags and heading back home to Japan. This massive reverse tide is called repatriation, and it is a financial earthquake.
Repatriation is a financial
reality
earthquake. The Fed only controls short-term rates.
The Federal Reserve only controls short-term interest rates, but the long-term rates, the ones that dictate your 30-year mortgage, corporate credit, and stock valuations, are ruled entirely by supply and demand. For decades, Japan was the most reliable, insatiable buyer of U.S. debt. But right now, the U.S. government is running trillion-dollar deficits, printing massive amounts of new debt every year just to keep the lights on. We need buyers more than ever, but our biggest buyer is stepping away from the table. If Japan stops absorbing our debt, U.S. bond yields must rise to attract new buyers. This means the Fed can cut short-term rates all they want, but long-term rates will stay trapped in the stratosphere. This triggers a brutal domino effect. When long-term yields stay high, the math models used by Wall Street to value stocks collapse, causing valuations to compress. Corporate credit dries up, mortgages stay agonizingly expensive, and the very oxygen of the financial markets, liquidity, gets choked out. The mainstream media ignores this because explaining global macro liquidity doesn't get cheap clicks. It's easier to scream about inflation or hype up tech stocks. They want you to believe that a single Fed rate cut will magically fix everything, but the tectonic plates beneath the global economy are shifting. The cheap money era is officially dead. The invisible duct tape holding the system together is peeling off, and the real threats aren't the loud ones making the headlines. They are the ones hiding in plain sight, quietly waiting for the music to stop.